I didn't get accepted anywhere. Hey guys, it's Kim. Welcome back to my channel. And if you are just stumbling across this video, consider subscribing if you like PhD related content. So today I wanted to share my story of my journey to being accepted into a PhD program. It's that time of year where you may be hearing decisions back and getting invites to interviews, acceptances, and even rejections. So I wanted to share my story of when I applied, what were the results, what happened, and just as like a bit of solace that whether you're being rejected from your dream program or accepted, that I truly believe that you will find your path and where you are meant to be, and that even if this year isn't your year, you'll be able to figure out where it is that you're supposed to be. So you'll know better than I do whether this is a longer video or shorter. So if it is on the longer side, feel free to make a cup of tea or coffee. I have a jasmine tea right now. And yeah, I guess I'll just get into it and share my story. So I first applied to PhD programs in the 2013 year for the 2014 cohort. So I had just finished my master's program in forensic psychology that May. And so I was applying in December, like November, December. I didn't have to take the GREs because it was within the time period. So from when I started my master's, so I graduated college in 2011 and graduated from my master's in 2013. And I had always known that I wanted to do a PhD program. Like I said, I got my master's in psychology, and I had a mix of research and clinical, and I was thinking of doing my PhD in clinical psychology. So in 2013, I was applying to clinical psychology programs. And, you know, I had really good grades. I did research during my undergrad as well as during my master's program. I had the master's thesis. I didn't have any publications, and I was 22, so I was pretty young. I graduated college early, and I did the master's in the 2-year time. So I was 22, probably a little immature. Like I thought I was very mature, but once you get a little older, you realize, oh, I actually didn't know as much as I did. So I was applying in 2013. I had my, the professor that was my thesis advisor write me a recommendation letter. I had other professors who reviewed my thesis write me recommendation letters, and my externship. So I was interested in clinical psychology programs. I wanted to do a mix of research as well as practice. And yeah, I mean, it's very tough, this clinical psychology landscape for funded programs. They only accept maybe like 4 students a year, 4 to 8 students a year. So I knew the competition was pretty tight, but I felt that, you know, I was doing research and I had good grades. So I was like, okay, let's just do this. I applied to like 4, I think either 4 or 5 programs. And it's not uncommon to apply to PhD programs right after your master's. So I knew I might not have had publications or that extensive of a research history, but I figured, you know, this is kind of what you do. You undergrad, master's, PhD, I knew that I wanted to do that. So I applied, yeah, like I said, to 4 programs. And then I heard back in January, so it was like the December 1st, everything was due. It was at that time where I was still like mailing applications. Like it wasn't purely all online, so I was printing transcripts and my transcripts from undergrad. And yeah, it was really a stressful time. I was really nervous. I was really anxious. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I had, after graduating, I had a part-time research assistant job, so I wasn't completely, you know, lost of what to do if I didn't get accepted, but I wasn't working anywhere full time yet. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. If this doesn't work out, I really don't know. Maybe I will try to like get a publication in and apply the following cycle. But yeah, and I spent probably way too much time on the Grad Cafe website, like refreshing and reading other people's stats and seeing when different schools would send out their interview invites. And yeah, like at least like from my undergrad and master's experience, I didn't receive much rejection. I had been accepted to all but one of the schools I applied to in undergrad. I was on a waiting list for one of the schools and then was declined. And then for my master's, I was accepted to all the master's programs that I applied to. So I knew that the PhD program process would have a lot more competition, but I was definitely thinking I would at least get an interview invite. But I kept refreshing Grad Cafe and then seeing that, you know, other people were getting notified if they were going to come in to interview. And I just like my heart sank. I was like, what am I going to do? I guess I just keep trying, but I didn't receive like the official rejections yet. I just kept thinking, oh, well, maybe, you know, after some people go through the interviews, and if those people like decline, maybe they'll like reach out to me. But I didn't hear from any of the programs I applied to. So I applied to 4 or 5, which for the PhD, for at least for clinical psychology, I heard that like that's, you know, about like the smallest you would want to go. I also was only applying to fully funded programs, and I was only applying to PhDs. So I didn't consider PsyDs. I had some friends in my program apply to PsyDs, but I wanted the research angle, definitely. I was still leaning towards also doing practice, but I wanted to do the research. So I wanted the PhD programs, and I wanted a funded program because my master's cost me a lot of money. So yeah, by the time probably like February, March rolled around, I had, you know, received those letters of rejection. I didn't get accepted anywhere. By the time March rolled around, I believe I received all of my official rejection notices. And I was crushed. It was really hard. It was more like thinking of, okay, so what am I going to, you know, do now? The temporary part-time research assistant project I was doing, luckily there was another project, so I was still you know, put on, I had some hours and some projects I was working on. I was like, okay, well, maybe this experience will help me for the next cycle, but I need to find some full-time jobs. So yeah, class of starting in 2014 did not work out for me. The 2013 cycle, I was rejected from all the schools I applied to. And yeah, it was rough. So I guess I'll like kind of breeze through what I did before I tried again. So I had gotten a full-time job in August of 2014. So I was really excited about that. But because I had just gotten the full-time job, I was thinking of applying to PhD programs, but then I would have to, if I did get accepted, which I was like, this, you know, might not work out again. I was just like, you know, maybe I won't, maybe I will work full-time for a little bit. Maybe that can add to my, my CV, my resume, and, you know, make me a stronger candidate having a full-time researcher role. I was also starting to think more about like, do I want to go the research route or the clinical route? Do I still want to pursue clinical psychology, or would I want to do another type of PhD program that was more geared towards research? So I was working at that one organization for about a year, and then my dream research job opened up. It was where I was doing my research assistant job right after graduation, and they had a full-time researcher position. And I was so excited. I applied for that. I got that, and that was in 2015. And so that was also in August. So I did about 1 year at the first organization, and then I kind of got my dream job. And that was in August. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to want to quit and only have like another year here and find out in January, again, if I got accepted anywhere. So I kind of just stayed working. And So that was like 2015. And so by 2016, I was getting more responsibilities at my job. I was being able to take more ownership on research projects. I was really getting into the data analysis side of things. And I started leaning away from the idea that I would do clinical work or practice work. And I was getting more into the like program evaluation, data analysis. We were using more like SQL and R, and I was getting more into kind of the statistical programming side. I was always interested in that during my programs, but I was really thinking that maybe the clinical path wasn't for me, and that maybe like the research side, the quantitative research side was more for me. By this time now, I'd been working there for a few more years, and I kept, thinking in the back of my mind, like, oh, do I want to apply again to a PhD program? Like, it was always something I wanted to do. I've known I wanted to, get my PhD since I was like in first grade. I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. I watched way too much Law and Order as a kid. And so I was getting a little older. I was getting more, I was getting more responsibilities at work. And I was thinking, it was about the right time where I got promoted at work to a senior position, where I was thinking, what path do I see myself going down in the future? Can I keep being promoted as a master's level researcher? Is it time that I go back to school to get my PhD? Would that expand my career options? I was also getting a little more like, am I going to be like too old? Which is a horrible like thought and definitely not true, but honestly, I was thinking that. I was like, if I don't start this sooner rather than later, am I going to be too far in my career where taking the pay cut, even with a funded PhD, is going to be too difficult for my lifestyle? So once I got like the senior researcher position, my salary was pretty good. I was becoming the PI on projects, and we were applying to more different grants. But I was like, oh, like I'm still doing the things that I want to do with my career. Do I really need the PhD? And then another side of me was, well, you have always wanted this. Maybe now is the time. And also, like, where would my career go? Would the PhD open more doors and opportunities? And when I was applying to more grants at my company, I did feel like having the PhD would be beneficial to me. I was also feeling like the knowledge that I was gaining at my job, that the like statistical models I was doing, the program evaluation techniques, that having the PhD would be beneficial for having kind of that cred for the resume, as well as for having the skills. I felt like I peaked a little bit at what I felt comfortable and confident doing as a master's level researcher. And so I was like, oh, I think I should apply again. And this was in 2018. So 5 years later, I was like, oh, okay, I was kind of like, it's like now or never. Like, let's just do this. Let's see how it goes. So it's fall of 2018. By this time, my GRE scores, they're expired. Like they were way too old, because I did that in like 2011 or 2010. And so I was like, oh, well, that might also be an opportunity to boost those up. I'm a pretty good test taker. Like, I'm not amazing, but it's not that much of a challenge for me. So I was like, okay, let's just redo that. But I decided to do this in like October, like September, October. I was like, let's just apply. And so with the December deadline. So I was also debating, like, what types of programs do I want to do? Criminology, sociology. Do I still want to do a clinical psychology program, even knowing that I wanted to focus on research? I was a little more hesitant to do that, because clinical psychology is, an 8-year program, and there's extensive externship and practice. So that kind of seemed off the table. So I was more thinking of criminology, sociology, in that aspect. But then I was also colleague of mine talked to me about how she did her PhD in public health, and we had another colleague that had a master's in epidemiology. And I had not really been exposed much to the public health side of things. I did my undergrad in psychology and criminology, and like I said, my master's in forensic psychology. But because I was so interested in the quantitative side of things and in the modeling, a lot of people kept mentioning to me, well, maybe you would be interested in the health sciences. In epidemiology, there's a lot of numbers. It's very quant heavy. It's like the courses you would be taking are biostatistics. It's also very research methods and research driven. And people were telling me it's also, it's a 4-year PhD program. You really just learn the methods and the math, the statistics behind things. So it's very practical. I was also really worried about doing a sociology or a criminology degree because it's very theory based, and that wasn't really where my interests were. Of course, I want to tie everything to theory, but I wanted to learn more. The place I felt stuck in my career was I want to be doing more advanced methods. So yeah, I was like, okay, well, let's try this epidemiology thing. I was like, I think with my now 5 or almost 6 years of research experience professionally, that I could leverage the data science aspect of what I was doing to show that I could quickly pick up the biostatistics required in the health sciences. And also a psychology degree, at least my bachelor's was a bachelor of science, so I felt like I could still kind of leverage that, even though I was switching from like a more social science to a health science. So yeah, because I decided to do this in like September, October, and I still needed to do the GRE, and I was like, I am so out of the game. Like it's been 5 years since I've like been in school. This is like a shot in the dark. And I didn't really have that much time to research schools. So I like researched a few, but this like world of the public health and epidemiology schools was really new to me. And I was also getting I was like a little more like in my career and in my relationship where I had to think about like where my partner could get jobs. And so I couldn't just like apply anywhere and we just move wherever. And we were in New York at the time, and my partner was interested in going from one side of like tech to video games. And I was like, oh, well, there's, and we were also thinking about like moving to the West Coast. And we're like, oh, Seattle is a cool city. Oh, they have a PhD program in epidemiology. I'd actually applied at UW's clinical psychology program in 2013. So I was kind of thinking they might have a good overlap of like the psychology and epidemiology. And there are a lot of tech companies in Seattle, obviously, and a lot of video game companies in Seattle. And so it just kind of like worked out where I was like, okay, let me apply to this school. I looked up faculty members, and they seemed to have professors that were doing this crossover with like criminal justice work and psychiatric epidemiology. And so it felt like a really good fit. And I just thought, let me just throw my hat in the ring, see how it goes. I'm not like, I'll take the GRE and that'll be good for another 5 years, and we'll just see what happens. And I had only applied to one school. So, which is definitely like a very risky thing. I mean, the odds are not in your favor at that point. I had seen in 2013 that applying to like 4 schools wasn't even sufficient to really help me out. But I was like, let me just do it. I don't really think anything's going to happen of it because I'm not even from this background. That I really did try to make sure that my like personal statement really conveyed like the intersection between public health and the work I was doing in the criminal justice system and in my psychology background. But I was like, this is a complete, it just might not work out. So I applied to University of Washington's epidemiology program. The deadline was, December 1st, and that was 2018. And I didn't I just didn't have time to apply anywhere else, but I figured I can spend this next year researching this, but I really do know I want to go back to school and I want to get my PhD. I was 28 at the time, so I was like, I want to get in before I'm 30, like I want to start this. And which again, you can do these things at any time, it really doesn't matter. There are people older than me in my program, people younger than me. I could do a video on that, like the pros and cons of waiting to do a PhD program. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. But so even though I should have learned my lesson back in 2013 about not checking Grad Cafe, I was constantly refreshing that website again in 2019, like in January. And then I was just sitting at my desk at work when I got the email that I was accepted. And I was in a bit of disbelief. But yeah, and there was also like no interview process. So I was like so excited. They also were talking about like that there would be, even though there was no interview process, there would be visit days in the next, it was basically like 3 weeks, 4 weeks later. And so I was just like so shocked, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I could be in a whole new state doing a whole new thing in the same year. So went to visit days and I loved Seattle. I loved the program. I got to meet a lot of people that were also considering going. And yeah, we were really excited. We ended up moving in April. I was still working at my job remotely over that summer, and then I started the program in the fall. So that is my story from a psychology master's program graduate to where I am today, and a lot of time in between of growth and development. Let me know down below if you are applying to PhD programs right now, if you are thinking about it. And yeah, I hope this story was somewhat motivational. If you are receiving rejections, it's definitely okay. You will find your way. Thank you so much for listening to my story if you've made it this far, and I hope to see you in an upcoming video. And I hope you have a great day and good luck this graduation application cycle.